Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're the hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every day, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can view all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues that affect you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Good evening, everyone. It is September 12th at 6:30, and this is the monthly meeting of Fitchburg's Transportation and Transit Commission. First order of business is to welcome Logan Reichstadt. Of course, pronounce the second vowel. We will make short introductions, and then I'd like to tell you, we'll hear whatever you'd like to introduce yourself. So I'm Steve, and you and I have met. I'm chair and previously an alder and previously a member of this commission for 10 years. On to Ross.
I'm Ross. I'm the transportation engineer with the city and staff contact for this commission, which you know. Been with the city about a little bit over 18 months now, and did consulting, engineering, and a very similar role, just on the other side of the table before that. So, yeah, welcome.
Bill Jetzer, I'm the alder assigned to the commission. I've been an alder since 2023, and that's my first foray into politics in my entire life. Transportation cyclist, environmentalist. I'm all into energy efficiency, land use, planning, transportation. That's me.
All right. Rick Smith, we met last time, so I'm not new anymore. I still ate a cookie. We live in Fitchburg near McKee Farms Park, so not very far from the southern turnaround.
I'm Gabriella. I'm the other alder, District 2. I'm actually the Plan Commission rep to the committee. It can be anybody, and I'm the alder rep to Plan, so I'm here. I was on the committee for 4 years, and then Bill stepped on, and I was able to come back about 6 months. I think 6 months later, so I've been on it for most of my time as an alder. And overall, transportation issues, think it's really fascinating how we build our roads, how we move our people, and really have loved. I really support public transit as well, so that's a big part of what drove me to originally run for office. And then climate change is also a pretty driving issue for me. My background's in geology, so something I think about quite frequently.
You should mention your Guinness World Record.
Yes, I also have Guinness World Records.
Oh, 5.
Yeah,
several of them, I think.
Seriously, yeah, about 4-leaf clovers in that realm. That's right. And I'm also council president this year, so there's that too. Yeah.
Elizabeth.
You're making me follow Gabriella. That's
Sorry. If you had been here in person, you could have picked your place on the table.
I guess. Yeah, Elizabeth Ward. I'm just an at-large member. My passions probably related to transportation are definitely climate change and then making sure we have access for people who can't drive, whether they physically can't or can't afford to or don't want to. So transit is a big issue for me also.
Thank you. Yeah, let the record show that everyone is here except Micah, and he informed me earlier that he would not be able to be here. So tell us whatever you'd like about yourself.
All right. Well, I'm Logan Reichstad. I have lived in Fitchburg for just over 2 years now. This is my first foray into local governments, at least on this side of the table. I spent almost 8 years as a professional journalist covering TV, working in TV stations all over the country. Grew up in Dane County, so glad to be back here. And when this opportunity came up, I was really excited to get involved. This is a place I want to build put down roots and stay for a while here. As of a couple weeks ago, this is the longest I've lived in one place since I was in high school, and I'm about to turn 30. So glad to not be moving anytime soon. Regular user of basically every one of our modes of transportation, Route 65 bus rider, biked here on our wonderful bike trails. One of the things that sold me about living in Swan Creek and in Fitchburg in general was our transportation infrastructure and our bike infrastructure for sure. And along with that, like to go around and run on those same trails. And of course, I also drive a vehicle and need to get around that way as well. So always had a lot of interest in transportation, going back to even my days as a young lad. And now I'm excited to be able to help shape our policies and make sure that the system we have for the future is sustainable, both financially and for the planet, of course. And just make sure that what attracted me to this community, and I know there's a couple other cyclists in the room here as well, and we'll continue to attract other people here as we really continue to grow across Dane County.
Thank you very much. We speak out on behalf of the committee. Welcome. We're glad to have you. Number 2, we have no members of the public with us tonight. So the next order of business, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Anybody want to make any changes?
I might move that we move item 8 before our undoubtedly lengthy discussion item number 7.
Is there a second?
To the reports before the discussion items?
Yeah, so basically the reports from other bodies just follow Ross's report or council items, yeah.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Seems reasonable to not give the other body short shift.
And to clarify, after council items, or which one would you prefer?
I understood it to be between 6 and 7.
Yeah,
Between 6 and 7. Sounds
doesn't
good.
matter, but whatever. As long as it's before number 7, I think is a good idea.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of making that small change, say aye.
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 Okay, that's everyone. So that's unanimously adopted. On to the minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the August 8th meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Logan. Anybody notice any omissions or errors?
I have one change. For under public appearances, I request that we strike the address there and that we also remove the registration form. We typically don't include those in other committees, so that would be my amendment.
Okay. These are all public records, of course, but we could do that. Is there a second to that?
Second.
On the amendment, striking from the packet, I assume. I don't know if we can change the packet, but or is this in the nature of Ross? Is this in the nature of being part of the minutes? Is that why this is here? This registration form.
And I know it's public record, but we don't typically include them.
I've seen it in other meeting.
Oh, really?
minutes. Yeah, in other minutes
Oh, okay.
from previous meetings. I don't know if there's an official policy buried somewhere that we're not familiar with, or
Yeah, I never heard of one.
That, I would have to ask
All right.
I'd have to ask Tracy about that.
So
I just prefer to keep people's addresses.
Sure.
off of where possible.
It's not like people can't go back and look at the video and see it stated in person, but yeah.
Well, they can go back to the council packet and read all about him when he was, his mayoral appointment letter.
GIS property records, it's all there.
That's all there. All right, so the motion, the amendment to omit the address and the citizen registration from the public records, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay, that's everyone. So now on the main motion to approve the minutes as amended, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay, that's everyone. So we are approved unanimously as amended. And now it is time for reports from Ross, PE.
So my staff report today, I wanted to focus on a tour of the BRT that Metro put on today. The mayor wanted to attend, but I think she had something last minute and she couldn't. But Chad Brecklin and I went and basically got a tour of the station, one of the stations, and rode around on one of the buses for an hour or so. We went basically from the Metro offices on East Washington and went west to the Mineral Point endpoint station. Park and ride and chargers and stuff. So I just have a couple of pictures that
Did they leave you to get back by yourself, or did
No, they brought it.
Okay.
They actually kind of ran the bus because some people wanted to get off at their office, on the square, so they did stop on the square and let people off, which is funny.
Just as a side note,
Time.
on Wednesday, I was out running very early in the morning, and the Route 65 bus at 6 a.m. or whatever time it was one of the new articulated buses.
Yeah, and so actually right now, obviously East-West BRT isn't live until the 22nd, but they are running the articulated buses on A, B,
80 and 75.
80, 75, and then I think R and F, if I remember right.
Yeah, I don't know about those.
Yeah. So they have 46 articulated buses. Eventually, they're all going to be BRT. They're going to use them. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had the articulated bus on 65 for the most of the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
At least the time I get on and the time I get off. So
Is that a heavily ridden bus as a standing room?
it gets certainly
Once you
more
get to
crowded,
campus.
the closer you get to downtown and to campus. There's some mornings that I'm the second one on, getting on in Swan Creek, and there are some mornings by the time we get through Terravessa and up to kind of where Rimrock curves into Madison there and into Southdale, where it's, there's half dozen to a dozen people on there, and so it seems like every stop or every other stop we get, 2 or 3 people come on. So it is certainly been standing room only in multiple instances, especially the first couple days of the spring semester when it is not feeling like spring.
So I'll just go through these pictures, and if you have any questions, stop me and we can talk about it.
Is this the Baldwin and East Wash?
Yes, that is the station we
Westbound?
were at.
That's a center station, right? So
Yes.
it serves both directions.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is one of the live timing boards. These timings I don't think were real because the B is not running BRT right now, obviously. But they're pretty large. You can see them from all around the station. This is kind of the seating area. There's a small bench at each station. This is the ticket or card fare machine. I'm sure some of you already have the fast fare cards, but these are tap to pay instead of the magnetic stripe. All the BRT buses will use those, and they'll be transitioning all of the other buses over to that over the course of, I think, about a year. So,
Can you get one of these cards there or only fill it?
that is a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
The cards I got mine at the library event that was held here at the Fitchburg Library. When you get them, they're worthless. They throw them out like candy. So I'm guessing the machine will dispense them, but then once you've gotten them, you have to make your account on their system, put in the card number, and then you can add value with your credit card.
And you can link multiple cards to one account. So if you have kids or stuff like that, you can just put, $100 in your account and everybody just swipes and it all comes out of that same balance.
Can you swipe one card for card twice for 2 passengers getting on the bus?
I believe everyone should have their own card because the way that the cap systems work, so there's a weekly and a monthly cap for how much you can pay for rides.
Daily too.
Yep, so each ride is $2 and I only remember the monthly cap off the top of my head, but the monthly cap is $65. So if you swipe enough times to get up to $65, then it doesn't take any more money off after that.
So if you have a single account with multiple cards, it's $65 per card.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
But you still have to tap.
Yep.
Otherwise you're a violator.
Fair. Yeah. And then next year, they will activate full tap to pay, and you can just tap a debit or credit card, and all the same rules apply. If it detects $65 of fares in a month off of one credit card, it stops charging that card when you tap it. So eventually you won't even need the dedicated card or an account.
I found out about multiple cards per account after I had already created 2 accounts and added value to each of them. And they will allow me to abolish the account and transfer the value from the one account to the other. But you have to do that at Metro offices in person. I think that's an anti-fraud thing. So.
And just while we're on the subject here as well, from Metro's website, you can get a card through the mail if you email them, pick one up at their offices where you were earlier today, Ross. And there's a pickup location at our humble Fitchburg Library from noon to 3 on Friday, September 27th. So folks don't want to head all the way to East Wash, noon to 3 on Friday the 27th at our Fitchburg Library.
Okay.
Maybe you get it sooner by emailing them.
Yeah.
Waste a few electrons.
So this is one of the overhead charging stations. These are fairly automated. Basically, the bus pulls up underneath this, and I have a video of this later. But the bus pulls up, the driver hits a button. If the bus is in the right spot, it will, I'm gonna go out of order here. There it goes. There's my video. If the bus is in the right spot, it drops down and attaches to the rails on the top of the bus and charges. So we were at this station, this is the Junction Road endpoint. We were at this station for 15 or 20 minutes, just talking about the station and the chargers and everything. And the bus charged from 60% to 80%, which once it gets to 80%, then it throttles the charging speed, so it preserves the battery life of the bus. So.
Do we know what's the battery capacity on these things?
I don't know the battery capacity. I do know that these chargers are 450 kilowatts a piece.
Okay.
And there's 2 of them at the station.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how they perform in the winter. Because as an electric car owner, the batteries definitely do not perform at the same level.
One thing I learned today, these buses have small diesel fuel heaters for the batteries.
Oh.
So they have separate heating that keeps the batteries at the correct operating temperature. And obviously Metro hasn't run them in the winter yet, but apparently the battery performance is supposed to be pretty much the same. You just have to run the diesel heaters.
So much for fossil fuel.
Yeah,
I hope that Satya is out procuring biodiesel.
It is hard though. I mean, it's a problem with living in the cold temperatures.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice if you could use the power of the battery itself to run a little heater to keep itself warm.
Yeah, which you can do, but that obviously
But then it drains the battery
uses
more.
battery power.
I presume that while the bus is running, the battery probably is keeping
Stays
itself
warm.
warm anyway.
Yeah, it's just probably when it gets started up.
I'm guessing so. And these are stored in a heated bus depot overnight, so there's no issues there either.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm gonna
Probably
skip
heated by diesel fuel.
skip back a little bit. This is kind of a long view of the station. You can kind of see how big it is. The bus can deploy these ramps. They won't do this every time because it does take a couple of seconds for these ramps to flip out. Normally the driver will just pull up pretty close to the station, and if there's no one in a wheelchair or who needs accessibility help, then you'll just have to step over a small gap to get on the bus.
Oh, I thought that they deployed the moment that the doors opened. That was the impression. I went to the open house last Friday here at at the Baldwin station.
Mhm.
And that was the impression I had from the Metro person, was that as soon as the door opened, the steps came out. But not the case, not what you heard.
Yeah, at least our driver had to press a separate button. I'm
Because
fairly
I was
sure.
also curious about what would happen, because it's a bit of height to the station. If for whatever reason the bus had to stop somewhere that wasn't at a station, then are there also steps?
Well, they've got that problem all along the B route and the 75, because they're using these buses, and there's no stations.
But these buses can raise and lower. I don't know how.
No, I don't think these do. I think that this is the solution to that, so that they don't have to squat.
I don't know the answer to this question.
They might be kneeling, but just not using that feature when they're at stations, because the kneeling operation takes a little bit of time and increases the dwell time.
Does someone who's ridden on these buses know the answer to that question?
Yes. Not off the top of my head, I'll have to
Well, when you
keep my
step
eyes
on
on it
and off.
next week, yeah.
When you step on and off, you have to step up a step.
Was there a step when you got on?
I'm usually getting on from curb level, so
But these
I don't think it's like a significant step if it is one.
Okay.
I noticed that at the station, one of these was painted with a wheelchair and the other was painted with a bicycle.
Yep, yeah, so bikes load in the back because that's where the bike racks are. Wheelchairs load in the front because that's where the wheelchair restraints are. Which I have a video of one of those later too.
And how many bikes fit? How many wheelchairs fit?
There are 2 wheelchair restraint locations. One is automated, one is manual, so the driver has to help with that one. And 4 bikes fit in 2 racks. You can probably fit more than 2 bikes in these racks. I don't think I have a picture of those, but you could probably fit at least 3. You could probably fit 4 if you weren't worried about getting your handlebars tangled up. But from Metro, they fit two bikes apiece in 2 racks. So these are basically driver bathrooms, and then this building is the charging infrastructure. So this is about the size of the building we would get on that Triverton Pike parcel. We wouldn't have as much open space at ours just because the site is smaller, but this is about the size of the building. More pictures of that. This is one of the payment terminals. There's one on each door. Right now, in the app, you can basically generate a QR code and scan that on your phone. Eventually, like I said, they'll just have regular tap to pay at the NFC terminal at the bottom. So that'll be you can do it off your phone or off of a regular credit card. So
And that's an optical scanner in the middle there?
yes.
So that's for tickets or fast fare cards? Or is the fast fare card a tap?
Fast fare card is a tap.
This is a tap, I think.
Yeah.
Yep, so yeah, you use the, what is that, the NFC at the bottom
Yeah,
there?
this guy. So, but on the app on your phone, you can also, right now, have a QR code come up on the app and use that to use your wallet on the app and not need to have the card. So this is the automated wheelchair restraint.
Does it say goodbye, Mr. Bond?
Not necessarily. I have a video of it closing. So basically it stows upright like this, and then it automatically, there's a little button you press and it flips down and squeezes the wheels of the wheelchair. So this is Liz, a Metro employee, pretending to be a wheelchair. But it just squeezes until it feels a little bit of pressure, and then it kind of stops there. So, and I think, yeah, there's the little button you press. It's on the underside of a seat, so flip the seat up, hit the button, and you're good to go. So, yeah, questions, comments about that?
A couple observations that I had from the open house. So it looked to me like the intention was to allow 4 bicycles on either side of the center aisle. The rack has 4 slots in it, but obviously if you have a wide bike with bags and such on it, maybe you can't.
Yeah.
Did you try to put any money on this yet?
No.
Okay.
So, good luck.
Oh boy.
I went to the Madison Metro site and I thought, I'll install the app. And so you click on iPhone App Store, I have an iPhone, and it takes you to a blank page. And I thought, maybe wrong browser, I'll try a different browser. So I tried a couple different ways. And I finally called Madison Metro and I said, I'm trying to install this app. I'm on your website, I'm following the link. And they're like, well, it's not up yet. It's not installed.
The app's not available.
And I said, why don't you either take the link off or have it go to some page telling you that it's not there yet? So, because I picked this card up at the open house thinking, oh, well then I should add money to it just to see how that goes. So then I went through the process of adding money. Have you tried that yet? Have you tried? And it tells you to enter a number on the back of the card. And if you look at that card, what number would you say should be entered?
Oh my gosh, it's so long.
The one with 91 digits?
So
That's what I thought.
Bottom.
I did this,
Okay,
and I
okay.
followed a half sheet of instructions
Okay.
that was provided at the library, at the first Fitchburg Library event.
Yeah.
And it tells you that you use the part of the number that's before the hyphen.
Right, at the bottom of the card, at the very bottom.
Yes, it's
Okay.
got a little circle around it in a
Yeah.
picture, so
Yeah,
you can see
That would have
exactly.
been a very long number to put in.
And then the
Literally
stuff after the
27.
hyphen is the verification.
Check, yeah.
Yeah, and that was totally not obvious, and I consider myself to be a reasonably tech-savvy person. I told the
Have you
person
met a developer who's written instructions?
RTFL.
person on the Madison Metro call that I said, you're gonna get a lot of calls about this because, one, you're not informing anybody about the app not being there, and then 2, try to figure out what number is on here, so.
Well, I suppose they're not too concerned about the link because very few people actually have these cards until after it opens, maybe.
Well, they were
I mean,
giving
there's.
away, like you say, like candy.
Well, yeah, but
at
still, what
station.
fraction of people are able to go to an event like that in the middle of the
Right.
day?
But I don't know if, like you said, that machine would distribute these cards, or if the only thing you can buy on the machine is a
Add value.
certain ticket or add value to this.
I know you can add value to the cards.
Yeah.
My experience was that I had previously sent driver's licenses into Metro and gotten 2 little, I think I even have it with me, 2 little ID cards that say I'm qualified for the $1 senior fare.
Oh.
And so, this is my wife's, and so I showed them that,
Yeah.
and I had an unused monthly pass
Right.
that I won some Metro promotion years ago that I haven't used yet because I hadn't needed to go more than once or twice a month. And so I gave them that, and I had a half-used 10-ride pass.
Yes.
And so I said, well, right now we can't help you with the half-use 10-ride pass.
Right.
I think they're going to be able to deal with that at Metro's offices in September or something. So their advice is just to use it. Although when I use it, it's $2 instead of $1. Not that I can't afford it. And then later, I logged into my account and I saw that that I had a senior discount and that there was $31.50 on one of the cards that $1 I had put on, and the $30.50 was from the monthly pass. And so that was within a day. So they are right now, before the rush, you know, they're very responsive. Thank you.
One of the other photos you had inside the station was that gentleman standing on the bench, and above his head was a heater that you push a button and it lasts for 15 minutes and then it goes off.
And the concrete floors are also heated?
Yeah, radiant heat under the floors for snow melt and ice melt. Yep.
Now, are those heaters diesel or electric?
I imagine they're electric. They got a megawatt of power.
They go straight to the Earth's core and just pull up some magma.
They're geothermal.
There's also pretty, in my opinion, I obviously don't use a lot of the accessibility features, but they seemed good to me.
Yeah.
You know, you can press usually the stations don't talk, but there's a button you can press and it'll read out information that's on the board and the live timings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then there's also a type of detectable warning field that I have not seen before. It's a directional warning field, so instead of just the little bumps that you get on the sidewalk,
Stripes.
this has, stripes that direct you, you know, go this direction, that's where the bus door is. So.
Okay. The station wasn't completely finished, and I asked about, like, above the heater button, there was another box, but it was just an empty box, and I asked what that was for, and they said they didn't know. But then I said, you know, either in the station or on the bus, is there any place where I would be able to charge my phone? And the answer was no, not in the station and not on the bus. So
You need an adapter for that overhead thing.
see what I get.
Charges your phone in 3 picoseconds.
Was it 450 kilowatts, Ross? Something like that?
Times 2.
And I think if you got your phone close enough to touch that, I don't know that.
That would be wireless charging. You just have to have it in your pocket.
So, yeah, that's my report. Thank you. So.
Okay. Could you briefly report on what's happening with Seminole Highway, Osmondson, and Nesbit?
Yes, so those 3 roads plus you said Seminole, Osmondson, and Nesbit?
Yes.
Then also Fitchburg Road by Target.
Yeah.
Those 4 roads they were part of our surface maintenance project where we do chip seal and crack seal normally. They had slurry seal on top of them, which is a treatment we generally don't use anymore because we don't like how it acts when it ages. It kind of flakes off and doesn't really adhere well. So because of that, we milled off that slurry seal layer, which left a rough surface, which is still there now. We are in the process of doing a change order for those roads. It just got referred out at council on Tuesday. So it'll go to Board of Public Works and then back to council. Those Fitchburg, Seminole, and Nesbit will get a new layer of asphalt, of regular asphalt on top. Osmondson is going to get a second layer of chip seal to smooth out the imperfections in that milled surface. So,
I mean, a lot of complaints online and to me personally, from particularly bikers. I was going to congratulate you on our new traffic calming technology, but it's really rough on bikes.
yep.
And this, of course, is why we don't have striping yet on any of these roads.
Correct, yep.
So with the Osmondson second layer of asphalt, is that gonna address the flooding on the corner by Timber something or other?
Timber Lane.
So that's a different, Timber Ridge Trail,
Oh,
that's a different section of Osmondson.
Okay.
That is in the section that we resurfaced
Oh, right.
last year. So the section that I'm talking about for the milling is pretty far south of there. But that section is actually tomorrow, where they're gonna start installing a concrete gutter across that intersection that will carry water across there. You can basically control the slope in concrete much easier than with asphalt. So it'll carry water through there and get rid of that bird bath.
And on the subject of projects, not our project, but the county is now resurfacing which is gonna be amazing. That road was so bad. Anything else? Any questions for staff?
I got a couple of items. First, congratulations to Ross for passing his PE exam.
Thank you.
Question on the RRFB on Sain Road. What's the status of that?
So I actually just got an email after we started the meeting from the electrician on the Cyan Road project. I'd sent him 3 emails in the past 5 business days asking for an update. And he said they finally have a quote from the supplier, so they've ordered it, and we'll be getting that installed fairly soon. He didn't have a schedule, but.
What's the cross, is that Cap City? Or where?
No, it's the path that is perpendicular to Sain Road that leads out there past the bathroom and tennis courts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then it heads north parallel to Sain. It's
down south of the BP.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's South Sain.
Correct.
Okay, and so that's not functional?
So the center RRFB got hit by a car and was destroyed, so we ordered a new one.
And how about Lacey at Badger? Still waiting for parts?
Oh yes, we're waiting on MG&E to install the services, the electrical services for the streetlights. Those run off of the same circuit as the streetlights.
I thought that when they installed the streetlights, the power would be hard on the heels of that.
I thought so too. MG&E has.
Has MG&E got supply chain issues?
No, we're through all the supply chain issues. We're waiting on cabinets and streetlights. This is just them getting there to do the work.
Anything we can do to yell at them?
I have been doing my best on that.
All right.
And Ross, just to follow up with the RRFB, did I get that acronym correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Rectangular rapidly flashing beacon.
Learning already. At Swan Creek Park there. So that was pretty recently put in with the South Sain project. What happens, like, as far as who pays for that if it's been there, 4 or 5 months and gets taken out by somebody hitting it with a car?
So any traffic crash that impacts anything the city owns, if we have the driver and their insurance and a police report, then we put a claim on their insurance, and I've never seen it not get paid for by their insurance. They're very clearly at fault here, so.
It wasn't moving on them. It didn't jump out in the middle of the street.
It came out of nowhere.
So yeah, city does not pay for that. And in this, usually we would, get a new contractor in there and do the work, but in this case, we just went right back to the people who installed it the first time and said, can you just do this again?
I have a question about the placement of the buttons for those, as long as we're on that topic. Is there a spec on the proximity and the height of the button placement relative to the path?
There is. I don't know the dimensions off the top of my head, but ADA has specifications on where those buttons need to be.
It's got to be within reach, and it's low for wheelchair users.
And on which side of the path?
That can vary. Right now we have RFBs on both sides of various paths.
As I'm approaching the street, is it on my right?
Well, it's gonna be on the pole, and in this case, the poles are on the left, because that way the arrow points to the spot before the path rather than on the far side of the path. I think that's the logic for that.
And it forces the pedestrian or bicyclist to look at traffic when they're pressing the button.
Oh, interesting.
So that's kind of the theory there. But in some areas, you can't place the pole on, whichever side of the path, so you put the pole on the other side, and that's where the button ends up.
Okay, cool,
So.
thank you.
And as long as we're talking RFBs, what's the status on the sensor on the one at Seminole and the Cannonball?
I am still waiting on TAPCO, which is the manufacturer, to provide guidance on setup for that.
Okay, so it's not that it was malfunctioning, you just don't have proper configuration instructions?
Yeah, it's a little bit of A, a little bit of B.
Okay.
The way that TAPCO initially told me it needed to be set up, just ran the RFBs nonstop. So obviously that wasn't it.
It was right. Must have been a foggy day. It was sensing something all the time.
So,
For those who don't know, and for anybody who might be watching or the public, these are the new ones at Cannonball and Seminole Highway, and that they're supposed to have sensors that will detect approaching path users.
yep.
But right now, you have to press the button.
Oh, okay. Is it in the ground?
It's a thermal sensor. It's up on top of the pole. So you point it at basically the crosswalk, the one on the far side of the street looks at the path on the other side on the crosswalk and vice versa.
Yeah.
And it detects human body heat, and it's calibrated for something the size of a human. A deer may set it off, but that's
Not a turtle, they're
necessarily
cold-blooded.
If you're standing on the path, there's a lot of questions about RFBs, aren't there? And let's say you didn't push the button, but you're trusting the thermal sensor. Standing there, can you see that it's on? Can the person on
Yes.
the path see?
So there's an indicator light on the side of the flashing light bar.
Okay.
In our spec, we specify how big that side LED has to be.
Okay. Is that true of other ones, like the other one in Seminole, for example, or ones we're going to do in the future, I assume? But
Most of them are placed on the right side of the path, so when you push the button, you look up, you can see the yellow lights flashing.
Mhm. Yes, but they all should have that
Yeah.
side light. But yeah, it would probably be easier to just look at the main light for most of them. The unfortunate part about the one on Cyene is that those side lights are on the one in the center, and the one in the center is not there, so you really can't tell with that one right now. So.
I had one more bit of commentary. I found myself at Sherrill and Cyene, and I wanted to cross Cyene Road, and I got there just after the light to cross Cyene turned green, and I thought, ugh, I missed my chance. But I pushed the bag button anyway. The walk light came on while the light was green. I've never experienced that before.
Well, the correct light was green.
Well, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yes, correct. Yeah, so I guess more please. Is it possible to make that happen elsewhere? Since then, I've run into that same problem at least two other intersections, Fish Hatchery and Sherrill, for sure. If the light has already turned green even a millisecond ago, you've missed your chance. Where was the other one? Oh, I think at McKee and Chapel Valley.
If one geeks out on Jerry Sherpa's Facebook postings of signal technology, which I do, you can see he's a big fan of having all of the different buttons come in to the control box separately so that you can do all these fancy things like if you press the center button, you get a shorter walk interval than if you press one of the side buttons, because at the side you're going to go all the way across. So he likes to have all the leads come in separately, and he has all of these elaborate signal timings that optimize so that the pedestrians and, for example, if you press a bike bag button, it will give you less time to cross because you're on a bike, things like that. And so that phenomenon of it coming on when it's already green has probably got Jerry's fingerprints on it.
And for another example, the one at Sherrill and Fish is a much older cabinet, because that hasn't been updated since it was installed. So that just doesn't have the same capabilities as, you know, the brand new one.
I assume the newer ones
So
have
you know what to do.
capability.
Wipe it out with your car.
And that one, I believe the cabinet is owned and maintained by the county. We probably pay some amount of it, but they have jurisdiction there.
All right, great staff report. Thank you. So we have an item from the council. This is a no parking ordinance for up near Forest Edge School. And you perhaps have read the staff explanation. Let's start with a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, staff report.
So this resolution is basically restricting parking on the east and south sides of Brassica Road, which runs from, and it's from Lacey up to Mizuna is where that restriction would be. So you can see, if I can find my mouse in this map, Brassica runs up here. This is Forest Edge Elementary School, which is kind of driving this change. Previously, this was signed as no parking during, no parking from 7:30 to 4:30, which is, you know, roughly school hours. The intent of that restriction was to give enough room for buses to drive in. This is the main route that buses take into the school. And this curve on Brassica makes it very difficult for a bus and a car to pass through this area at the same time if there's cars parked on both sides of the street. So the initial thought was to restrict parking during school hours when buses would be coming through, but basically the police, if there is a car parked there, the police have to go out and tow it, which since the restriction started at 7:30 would take 30 minutes. By then the buses have already needed to go past and it's already caused traffic issues. So the thought was to just restrict parking on that side completely and remove this issue.
And just by looking at this, this particular view, you wouldn't maybe understand why anybody would park there, but the actual situation is that there's awful lot of multifamily housing there now that.
Yes. There's a large apartment building here.
There's not much there.
Yeah, a large apartment building on this parcel, and there's one that kind of wraps around here.
Yeah, that's their center parking garage that they built
Yes.
first.
So there's still parking allowed on the west and north sides of the road, but there will no longer be parking allowed on the east and south sides of Brassica.
And why are we stopping at Mizuna?
Because we don't have as much of an issue with cars being parked there when it is restricted past Mizuna.
And where do the buses go? Do they go in the little loop or the big loop?
The buses come up Lacey, Brassica, and then into this loop. This is buses only. They go up here, they stage for pickup or drop off, and then come back out.
Okay, so that to the east of Mizuma is not a bus route?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is another good point.
While you have that there, this is unrelated, but there is a path right now that is right under the mute button by Ross Kaler there. You see on the upper right?
Yes, up here.
Is that temporary and going to be replaced by a street? Because there are homes facing what appears to be a temporary path.
Yes, that will be replaced by a street. I'm not
Okay.
100% sure of the,
Thank you
the
for
layout.
clarifying that.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, back to this ordinance.
I was going to say, first of all, I just wanted to thank Alder Jetzer for bringing this to, getting this on our agenda as well. With the Metro Transit buses in the morning too, it has been a absolute headache getting through that stretch of Brassica, and then the buses will turn onto Radicchio and then back to Lacey Loop there. It was almost daily that the buses would have to stop, and we'd have to be trading back and forth, and sometimes 2 or 3 times in that one block between, okay, well, we're gonna let, what did that be, westbound and then southbound traffic through and then switch off. So that was a significant headache that has now been alleviated because there are signs up already, which I believe from the Public Works meeting that we, correct me if I'm wrong, Ross, we have like 90 days to post it like as an emergency designation or something like that. So since that happened, and I mean, first day of school, which you'd think would be one of the busiest days of parents driving kids and everything like that too, it was smooth sailing. Right at that like 7:40, 7:50 time frame. So it's already making a significant difference with the temporary signage. So
Could you show us the Metro route? Oh, I just meant with your cursor on that map.
I believe it comes
They come off Lacey.
up here and flips around. Logan.
Comes off 14.
they come in
MM, I mean.
and then if you're going from Fitchburg to the UW Hospital route, the northbound route, they come in Lacey straight through up to Brassica, right on Radicchio, right on Lacey, and that right is that a fun tight turn. And there've been a couple minor clips there. So as Terabessa builds out, I would certainly love to see us maybe move that tight corner to move the bus route another block or something to avoid that. Don't want to scratch up our new buses. But both directions, north and south, will do that exact same loop. So that would be west on Lacey, north on Brassica, and then around the loop and back out.
So that's clockwise.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
This resolution restricts parking all the time, every day of the week, not just weekdays.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is an old map, so we don't kind of get to see what's built out here, but isn't there a center green space that's somewhere right there? Isn't there one parcel that's a park or?
It's up under the restaurants button. There's green space to preserve trees up there, yeah. So that is a park.
There, yeah, but
But there's an empty lot too, I don't think it's been built.
Yeah, these lots are just empty right now.
That will be the CESTA, which you have probably seen advertised. They're going to break ground next year. It's a progressive care community.
why do you think that I would be in charge of audience for the progressive care?
They are throwing a broad net.
I think you've seen it.
They want to start when you're merely ARP eligible.
So, are we interfering with future parking needs that people might have? Either if there's no green space, it's just like built out as apartments, or progressive care by restricting it all day, every day.
That is a possibility, but since we've done it before they're built, that can be taken into account with the site planning.
Okay, so you can still park on Radicchio, right? You just can't park on.
You can also still park on Brassica, just on
the other side of the street.
And Lacey, both sides.
And as far as the peak hour utilization that I've seen, Brassica's already pretty well filled up with that multifamily on the basically that whole stretch. But Radicchio, there's like 2 vehicles in that block, and one just happens to be a boat with a trailer that takes up about half the block. And then there's very little utilization that I've seen on Lacey in those kind of the peak hours, rush hour period. So there's still street capacity in that area, and I would assume before any ground is broken that we'd get an idea of which way the buildings face, and maybe not put building access right facing that way to discourage some of that. He said hopefully.
Well, they do also have alley access there, so,
Okay.
yeah.
And so tell me what happens for alternate side parking. Do they just have to find a different spot off street?
So I'm not 150% sure what our ordinance would say about this, but in practice, alternate side parking does not apply when we have one side restricted. So the practice right now is to plow around cars that are still parked and then clean up the remnants throughout the day as cars move.
Okay. And presumably, like I was through there last Saturday, and like Lloyd said, the north/west side of Brassica was basically parked solid. Is that like there's just not enough off-street parking provided by the multifamily housing? Or are people just out there because it's more convenient than trying to drive?
I think it's convenient parking because they have to drive a thing there on the left, the edge, I think is called a Texas donut. It's the parking garage completely surrounded by apartments. And so you drive into it from the south side, and then you have to loop up. And if you're coming home for lunch or something like that, you do not want to be bothered, so you look for street parking.
And what we see at a lot of other apartment buildings with walkouts like this one has is if you have a walkout, you're just parking right in front of the door. So.
All right, any further discussion or questions about this ordinance?
You're gonna make some neighbors very happy. I've already heard about it on Facebook multiple times, so I think.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Elizabeth?
I was too slow with the mute. Aye.
Very good. We wait for you. All right, that's everyone, so it's unanimous. On to reports from other bodies, which we changed on the amended agenda. Is there more from Common Council?
I got a couple items, and
Okay.
and Gabriella can keep me honest here because most of them are planned as well. But the council did pass the new medium-high density residential zoning category, which is 9 to 20 units. Previously, high used to be, was it 9 plus or was it 10 plus?
9 plus, I believe.
Okay, so there's an extra category now that will likely be used quite a bit, I would think. I guess it's less scary for people than, because previously if you said high, well, it might be 9 units per acre, it might be 100 units per acre, nobody knows. Council also passed the resolution to allow us to participate in the Safe Streets for All grant. Yay. Couple development projects that are continuing on in Highfield Reserve. There's a new high density building going up. It'll be 87 apartments in one building and 24 attached townhomes on about 3 acres.
Is that the former institutional site that
Correct.
was split?
Yes.
By the roundabout?
Yeah. The Jamestown Quarry development is going to move forward. We'll have one of those Texas donuts you were talking about with 250 to 300 units. And then the yucky part is the 4 drive-through properties fronting McKee Road with the sea of surface parking there. And I believe they said it was projected to generate 14,000 new daily trips, which it kind of conflicts with our goal of 5% VMT reduction by 2030, but.
So they passed this, huh? Yeah, McKee Road, just west of the Verona Road, is seeing 25,000 vehicles a day right now, according to our counter in the window of KL Engineering. So 14,000 more coming out of that development is going to be an awfully lot.
Well, it's an interesting point though about, because like these projects move along over long periods of time with economic development, with plan department, and the goals of this committee is not necessarily top of mind with some of those discussions. I don't know how we do that.
Well, yeah, and there's another point that I think I heard Dave Herbst make at a meeting recently. He said, there's a room here in City Hall somewhere, I don't know where it is, but it's the room where all the plans go to never be looked at again. And so I think that is, a concern. I've seen that with comprehensive plan. You'll see a development plan come through and they'll say, okay, we're consistent with the comprehensive plan, and they'll list, 2 or 3 policies. But you don't know, they don't list the other 900 policies that are in that document, so you don't know how they're complying with or not with other policies. And I don't know who's gonna give the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission update next, but my wife sits on that commission, and she said that was also a concern with the bike ped plan. The current structure of the 2017 plan doesn't even have, it's not even laid out as, goals, objectives, and policies. It reads like a narrative, and it's just sort of informational. And so even if somebody wanted to follow that as a plan, it's maybe ambiguous as to how they might go about doing that. But the concern as they're revamping that, again, is gonna be, okay, if we're gonna put in a bunch of work, hire a consultant to put in a bunch of work, at the end, a plan is gonna come out, will it be respected? And, the sheer volume of plans we have makes it a very difficult task to do that.
To clarify what you said are the goals, and you felt that this particular approval was in conflict with those goals.
Well,
goals originated where, or those goals are the goals of TCC?
Fitchburg is getting a sustainability plan,
okay,
which is in late draft, early finalization form right now.
Okay, so that's not enacted, but it's
correct.
In process. Okay.
Yes, and one of the goals that's in the plan is to have a reduction in personal vehicle miles traveled.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Corresponding increase in transit usage and,
active transportation.
Right.
So, but the approval of this particular development doesn't conflict with anything that's in place and approved at this point?
Correct.
Okay.
And,
I didn't know what the history was.
Let me know if I can help.
Yeah, no. I didn't know if that was something that had been previous to.
Yeah, there's things in the comp plan that it flies in the face of, like walkable neighborhoods and stuff like that, and diverse housing. We should not be building, junior boxes and that kind of thing according to our comp plan, but we don't have any teeth in it. And so things come to the plan commission, and the people there with the economic interest in building the thing are saying, show me where it says I can't do this.
Right.
And there isn't any place
right.
that says that. And so that's why it's often driven by developers that do not have one of our big problems is low-value development that requires a lot of infrastructure that it can't possibly pay for in its own property taxes, so the rest of the city subsidizes.
I think this is a good discussion, but it seems like we're getting way far off into
a
non-agenda item.
Anyway. Well, good thing we didn't vote on anything.
The only other council update I wanted to mention is that in addition to the 2 Ford F-150 Lightnings that the city already owns, the council just approved the purchase of three more EVs for the city fleet, one for the assessing department, one for inspection and one for the police department, non-squad for the police. So our fleet is becoming a bit more green as time goes on.
Anything to add on the council report?
Yeah, I just want a couple small things. Where the former Little John's was on Anton Drive, right off of Verona Road, that's gonna be a new prep kitchen for Blue Plate Catering, I believe. We approved a conditional use permit for that. So that space will be used again.
Is Blue Plate related to Monte's on the east side?
No, I don't think so.
Different.
But it's a pretty significant catering company, and they like the location and the proximity to Verona Road. So, and then there's also, we're in the stages of approving a indoor pickleball court off of Seminole Highway, right near the Seminole and Lacey roundabout. So there'll be more development along that near Hop House on that side of the road, but the first step is approving indoor pickleball court / some food. So I'm sure that would be welcome in the neighborhood, and that's all.
Okay. So did your wife tell you anything about what happened at the Bike and Ped Commission?
I asked her if nobody says anything, is there something I should communicate with the group? And she said that was the main thing, was that once we get the bike ped plan done, how do we make sure that it's respected?
That was in my last conversation with Mark Hamilton. He said that we would be focusing our work on the bike and ped plan. So that's what they're working on. Anything from plan that hasn't been already shared? Okay. All right, now we are moving on to a discussion item of Vision Zero. And you have, again in this packet, a reprise of the Vision Zero model resolution. And while Micah couldn't be here, he did send me some reactions, but it was my understanding that we should work through this and kind of fill in the blanks where we can, and that based on our discussion that staff will develop something to send to run by us, but then to send to council.
Yep.
Is that your idea? Very good. So as you can see, there's some introductory information. There is a model resolution and a model policy, and interspersed throughout there are blanks to be filled in and comments that are to be deleted, but to inform us. And I would give you my 30,000-foot view is that this all looks pretty good, and that the interesting things, I believe, in the Fitchburg context will be how this Vision Zero task force is to be constituted and the Vision Zero advisory group. So that would be kind of my takeaway, and I think that's something we should discuss. What are other comments that people have about this document?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, that task force, given how long this commission was down a couple of members, being on that task force doesn't sound like a small commitment. And I wonder if we're going to have difficulty finding people to be on that task force.
That is one way of looking at it. My way of looking at it is that it looked to me like this was envisioned to be city employees as part of their jobs. So, for example, right now we have a safety committee which consists of the administrator, the chief of police, the director of public works, and maybe the attorney. Do you know about that?
I don't know.
But anyway, they meet monthly and they talk about these very issues.
It does say it's Vision Zero Task Force of senior city officials or their designees. Okay.
Right. So, for example, the public works director could send his assistant public works director, but you wouldn't want the summer intern in there because these are the people that are going to be given the orders that this needs to be done. So Did anybody else have an opinion about this task force?
My preference would be to let staff decide who's best on that,
Yep.
on that group. And also based on staff capacity, right? I would assume it would include Ross. But I don't know, maybe not.
Well, and interest.
But yeah, I think we should leave that at Public Works discretion.
So one of the things that's going to be a very key question going forward is that this is going to cost something. It's going to cost money for projects, and it's going to involve staff time over and above what we're doing right now. And so there's going to need to be commitment from policymakers, that is the mayor and the alders, that the lives that we are talking about here and the limbs are important, and we're going to invest in this. Otherwise, it's not going to be successful. So I think that we should not shy away from that question. We can't go into this like on a time available basis. So if for example, if there needs to be a new city safety coordinator position, if that's the way it's going to be staffed and that person is going to pull in these other departments or something, maybe that's the way it's going to go forward, but it would take resources. And I totally agree that this is a very important question for the city administrator and his department heads to work out. But certainly we can give them our suggestions. I think that's what you want from us, right?
And I do think there is kind of another avenue, I'll call it here. The Safe Streets for All comprehensive safety planning grant can offer some outside suggestions on how to best implement a lot of this stuff as well.
And we saw many references to the Vision Zero toolkit as you read through this. And so I did not read all of that stuff, but there are many chapters about each of these things. One of them that came up back when we were devising the smart code is that you can't just put into ordinance some new city body without having open meetings law ramifications. And so what was determined was for our smart code administrative approvals was that the planning director would go informally and check with the public works director and the police department and the fire chief and so on, instead of convening a task force which would have to be subject to open meetings laws and things like that. So we will have to worry about that here because not every state has the kinds of laws that Wisconsin does. So
how many of our neighboring jurisdictions have a Vision Zero?
2.
Madison
and Sun Prairie is in very early stages.
Okay.
So I don't know if they have, for example, a task force or an advisory group yet. But I do know that they passed the resolution.
I believe so. They did very soon after lose their transportation planner, so I think their efforts have slowed down significantly.
But we shouldn't be blazing any new trail because we can talk to our next door neighbors.
So, any other thoughts on the?
I do have one. Right now, usually monthly, Chad, Captain Hartwick, Tim Volker, Tracy Foss, and I meet monthly for like an hour. We have a traffic safety meeting.
Okay, so that's that group I was talking about, and it's bigger now.
Right. I would envision this, kind of evolving evolving into this, whether it's with those members or different. I think that's a good start, at least.
I agree with you, and I think that what this is telling us is that you just need to make sure that all the people that have their hands on the levers are involved in this. So for example, very often fire departments have rules about how close buildings can be together, and they have rules about how wide streets should be and how long blocks may be. And so if the fire department has that kind of influence on your urban form, then the fire department needs to be involved in this. And so they want all the players to be represented so that you don't have barriers to advancing this. And where did I write that down? There it is. So as indicated, Public Works, Police, Emergency Response. Now EMS is not currently involved in this. Because it's one of the 5 pillars, which is post-crash response of Vision Zero, it probably should be. And I didn't think of the city attorney, but they're calling it out. And we don't have a health department. Other discussions on that?
I'm not certain how many times the new guy gets to ask questions, but I can still be new guy.
As many as you want.
Many as you want.
So I understand the history of Vision Zero broadly. What I don't have context for is how it entered the Transportation Commission of the City of Fitchburg. Like, how are we at this point? Can you just help me?
Yep, I can tell you about that. So when we started, when I started as chair, I felt, and others seem to agree, that we should be worried more about policy, transportation policy, and especially trade-offs between modes and things like that, and that we should not be looking at individual projects because Public Works and the engineering staff are going to be making sure that the streets are wide enough or skinny enough and whatever that needs to be, that the asphalt lasts. And so I teed up a great big list of ideas and invited others to contribute to it. And then we discussed which ones, and some were very specific, like should we not have right turn on red? Or should we have a truck route system? And some things were very expansive, like Vision Zero and complete streets. And it was, and those of you who were here, I guess just Bill and Elizabeth, that's the one that they settled, as a group we settled on.
Partly because of that list of, 24 things.
Right.
Many were about a quarter to a third of them could be brought under the umbrella of Vision Zero.
Okay. So that's where we started, and we did a little bit of it, self-education about it, and Elizabeth and I presented to the city council and said, this is what we are thinking of doing. If you think that we're way off base, you should tell us. And then subsequently and privately, the mayor encouraged us, and she said, when are we going to get a Vision Zero resolution? And so she's been going to places like the Mayor's Innovation Project where they talk about these kinds of things, and I think that she is in support.
Is there a timing relationship between us moving forward with this and funding from various entities? Like, if a city has adopted Vision Zero, does that open the city to funding sources that would otherwise be closed off?
Probably yes, maybe not explicitly. The Safe Streets for All grant that we are kind of a party to, that the MPO is the lead agency, is pretty much wrapped around Vision Zero. And if you read it, you say, oh, this is all Vision Zero.
Right.
And Vision Zero depends on the development of a high injury network map. And the MPO did that for the whole county, so that for us to build on. And so that's a good thing. MPO and the state of Wisconsin and federal highways have all adopted Vision Zero. So it's up to us to take advantage of that, I think.
And part of the reason for my questions are some things, that Bill pointed out too, of the extra infrastructure that you introduce, as well as the cost, and whether the level of organization makes sense at a city level or a regional level, or like, because Safe Streets for All, we did in conjunction with several other cities, right? And this seems like we adopt the burden of these responsibilities to the city of Fitchburg, not a broader governmental entity.
I think you're right about that. But we own our streets, and the county owns its highways like Fish Hatchery, and the federal government owns the Verona Road, and so we each have a part to play. And so, for example, we set our neighborhood speed limits. We determine what our neighborhood streets are designed to be like. And federal highways, DOT, and the MPO are not going to tell us what to do about that. So that's why I think we would be taking on new responsibilities that I think we should have been doing all along, and we haven't been.
If we fast forwarded 10 years, and we had two worlds, one where Fitchburg did this and one where Fitchburg did not, what would be visible differences between those two Fitchburgs?
I think our streets and neighborhoods would look different.
Like, in other words, are you designing dangerous streets right now and now I have to do safe streets? Like,
Well, okay, but I think the answer is yes, because he is designing streets. Every street at some point will be dangerous because people drive on it.
I'd love to hear what Russ has to say on this, though.
So I think to build off of what you were saying about adding responsibility onto us, I think that's definitely true. Like Steve said, this will require staff time above and beyond what currently is happening. I think it will also give staff tools to address situations that already need to be addressed, but we don't really have the data set or knowledge of the entire city to address those issues. And an example of that is right now, our traffic and safety staff meeting every month, we basically just talk about complaints that have come in from residents about speeding. And almost 100% of those speeding complaints come from the neighborhoods directly adjacent to City Hall, which are the more affluent areas of the city. But I think if you ask anyone in this room, and this is my opinion, what areas of the city could use money to be addressed to traffic safety, it would be areas that I never get any complaints from, because people don't necessarily have that relationship with City Hall in the northern parts of the city.
And then the change that would be due to Vision Zero adoption would be more data.
Yep. Yeah, more data, that high injury network specific to Fitchburg, and yeah, basically more direction on how to spend the city's money.
There are also some components in here about equity and public engagement, and I think they're very important elements. An example of underinvestment in our healthy neighborhood initiative areas is if you go up King James Way, if you go down King James Way, downhill south from Williamsburg Way, you encounter 3 speed bumps in the single-family neighborhoods where one of our former mayors lives. And then when you get to the multifamily areas, it's smooth sailing. And that is an example of underinvestment in some of our historically underinvested areas. And that's where the school bus stop is, that's where our new pocket park is, that's where there's a lot of kids playing in the streets. We need speed bumps there too, or some other mitigation. And there's examples of things like that all around the city.
So the data generation that this causes to occur is done by staff? Like, where is the data that's not coming from, that doesn't exist now?
A lot of it is going to be at the MPO. So the MPO has the crash data, the same data that we can see that all agencies provide the state.
Do you guys know what the MPO is?
No. Oh, sorry. Metropolitan areas around the country have metropolitan planning organizations, or MPOs, that distribute federal highway money. And Dane County has one. Most of the other MPOs in Wisconsin, I think, are multi-county. There's this, like a 6-county southeast Wisconsin MPO. And then federal money to the areas outside of MPOs go directly from DOT to projects.
Okay.
So the capital area, or Madison area, now they're called?
Madison area.
Madison area MPO
Right.
is the agency, they're on State Street. They cover an interior area of Dane County, basically Madison, and a projected growth area. But the higher injury network they created is for the whole county, and they often do things for the whole county, like the county bike map.
It sounds like what you just said is the data already exists.
It exists, but it's got to be examined and synthesized. So one of the things about a high injury network is you look at places where crashes occurred, but you know all the characteristics of the stretches and intersections, and you look at other places that have similar characteristics, and you address them too, and don't wait for a crash.
Didn't we say that the staff is essentially burdened with this responsibility out of Vision Zero? In other words, like, you already have access to the data, maybe you don't have the time or resources to.
Right.
That's what I'm struggling with in terms of saying, oh, it's adopted, it's a resolution, and now, like, what changes to empower the staff to make better decisions about speed bumps or.
So the MPO
Yes.
did a project.
Okay.
Over and above all the things that they have to do year in and year out.
Okay.
To implement the Transportation Improvement Program, which is this federal money spigot. And they developed the high injury network, and that and this grant will allow us to take that to the next step and start using those data to find stretches and intersections that have these common characteristics that make them dangerous and address them using the 25 proven traffic safety mitigation strategies that Federal Highways tells us to use. Those kinds of things.
Grant or a different grant?
Earlier grant, I think, or did they do that out of their own staff time, or did they have a grant for that?
I'm not sure.
We're not sure. But it was over and above their regular stuff.
I think another thing this will allow, so right now, the funding that I can access basically for traffic safety comes out of our TMP traffic management program. There's a CIP fund for that process, which involves a lot of community engagement, which is obviously a good thing. But it's focused, basically a resident has to initiate it with a petition. So it's basically staff can't initiate one of those projects without adding something to the CIP.
Without someone.
Yeah.
Petition.
So my thought for Vision Zero and the Safe Streets for All planning grant is it will hopefully, in my mind, change how the city allocates money towards these things and allocate the money towards the actual most severe areas instead of our
The
current
squeaky
policies, which is, kind of squeaky wheel based.
But did you already get what you need with the state safe streets for all? Or is there something missing?
I still don't have a way to, even if I said this is the worst intersection in the city,
Yes.
I have to add that project to the CIP. It has to be approved by council, and then it's however many years down the road we can fit it into the CIP. At this point, probably 8 or 10, which is obviously a long time.
Yeah. And the
I'm hoping
resolution,
this
the adoption
shortens
of
that
this
timeline.
changes that.
This, not necessarily,
It's not changing.
no. I'm imagining there will be other changes down the line as well.
Okay.
This might be, if not necessary, helpful, but not sufficient.
Mhm.
Is that what you're, is that a
Yeah.
good way of saying it?
Yeah.
Okay. How you doing, Rick? You good there?
I think so. The entire document makes you feel really good about doing things in your city to make it safer and to mitigate accidents. But as you said before, from various resolutions and things that are adopted, then those plans go to that room that we can't find. And so, but it seemed that it was creating some additional overhead that I wasn't necessarily sure how it got resourced. And what changed as a result of doing this. Because it's large, it has a lot to it, and as you said, you read all of the supporting documents as well yet either. So it's just, we're not that big of a city, and as you said, it was hard to find members just for Transportation and Transit Commission. So do we adopt it? And that is a great thing, and then it sits in that room.
Well, we're the Transportation and Transit Commission, so I think that we have a responsibility to push these issues along and the plans that we helped initiate to get them to over the finish line.
Okay.
So I think, for example, if you want to say, can we narrow troublesome intersections so that the crossing distance is not so great, or so people don't fly around the corner so fast? Should we lower the speed limits to 20 miles per hour in neighborhoods? We can determine that some of those kinds of fixes would apply to Fitchburg and be beneficial, and then come up with some kind of program that says, this is what it's going to take to do that. And we'll say, okay, well, it's going to take $75,000 to get a consultant in here to, an LTE engineer to work this project through or something like that.
Right.
But the first step is to say that we want to do it and that we know it's going to be costly, but we don't know how, or cost something, we don't know how much, so.
Okay.
The thing I like about the Vision Zero is as I learned more about it over the months. I actually wasn't here when we first started the conversation, so I was also picking it up a little bit in the middle. But it was kind of a paradigm shift. That sounds kind of dramatic, but it is sort of like, because you kind of think that traffic deaths just happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a part of life. Like, people are gonna die on the streets. But Vision Zero is like, no, it doesn't have to happen. And I never really heard that concept before. Like, oh no, it's not inevitable. We actually can prevent it from happening. And there are cities that really do design their environments to completely eliminate pedestrian deaths and bicycle deaths, right? Like that exists, that happens in this country, not just in other countries.
Trying to think of
Hoboken, New Jersey.
Hoboken, New Jersey has been like 5 years without a traffic death.
And as I've been on the committee too, learning more about all the different ways that you can control traffic psychologically by the built environment, like and noticing that more over the years, I think has been really interesting. And then it doesn't have to just be the things that people default to, like a speed bump. People always think speed bumps or they think a stop sign, which I get because those are the things that we see already that we think might help, but that's not necessarily the thing that's going to solve the problem. Like we have to look at what the problem is really and make a decision about how are we going to solve that problem, how can we change our streets to solve that problem, and then also, I guess, and also moving forward, build our streets so that they're safer from the outset. And there's just so much more technology nowadays.
How do we build without adding new streets? I mean, build transit first, active transportation first, build as few streets as possible to minimize the total number of places where something could go wrong.
So anyway, I just thought it was an interesting shift in thinking. And so yes, I think there are a lot of things that go through council that don't have as much meaning, but I actually think there are certain things that do go through council that are sort of a shift. So for example, in 2019, they passed a resolution about wanting to reduce our climate change impact. And that has sustained. And that was because staff was involved, staff wanted to do it, and they wanted to push it forward. And so the council signed on and said, yes, we're gonna do this. And that has continued on. And I think this is a similar thing where we are talking about, yes, we want to do this. Staff has been involved in the conversation from the outset. And I think if the council makes the decision to say, yes, this is happening, I think that is just like a shift in how we approach. So I think it can be, it's a powerful concept. Obviously the impact is the staff time. Our staff is already overburdened with a lot of work, but which is why I want, always want Ross's input in this discussion, because I think that matters a lot to me.
I'm encouraged that Ross is saying that right now he's beating his head against some problems that this might help, if I understand. Again, that neighborhood traffic management process assumes that there are engaged neighbors that will report things, and we know that to be not true for some parts of the city, that there's people in survival mode and that they don't have time to come talk to us about little problems that are risking their lives daily.
It also requires getting other neighbors on board, which for some individuals might not be actually possible. Like somebody that might not be able to walk door to door to gather signatures. Not all people have the ability to do that.
Oh, does the petition require multiple people?
Yes, so in multifamily areas, it requires 30% of the residents in the affected area, which is kind of vague and changes in each area. In single family areas, it requires 50% of the residents' signatures. So even this resident that Gabriella is talking about, even if she was completely able-bodied in the area she lives, it would be extremely difficult to get 30% of the residents to sign the petition.
Especially since, you generally can't even get into a multifamily building other than the one you live in.
Yeah, sure. Right, ideally.
I wonder if there's a way that we could this be something we get an advisory, vote or something from the community to get some sense that this is the direction they want us to go? I'm curious what, we hear some of those kind of the localized concerns, like I'm thinking of, was it Pembroke and Raritan where that rollover was? Or are we hearing from kind of isolated pockets of, they want fixes for their neighborhood in this specific spot?
Yes.
And then how do we then, say, well, I don't really, McKee is fine at 40 as people fly down it at 55.
People generally want quiet traffic around their house, nobody parking in front of their house. And wherever they go, they want to be able to go fast and park for free. And so it is very difficult to get people to think about policies that apply uniformly to your neighborhood and all the other neighborhoods, because they have very different wants for their own neighborhood than they do for everybody. So if you try to narrow a collector street to slow the prevailing speed, the people that live there will love it, and the people maybe, but all the people that want to use it would be against that. So.
And you also have the cost concerns as well. Like we could do a ton of things that we just can't afford to do.
And the public generally is not aware of the palette of solutions that we have available. As Ross said, that they default to certain well-known things like stop signs that shouldn't be used for traffic calming. I can give you one bit of history. The very first neighborhood traffic project was in my neighborhood. It was that traffic island by Byrne Park on Berlin Street. And but they had a lot of complaints there. I believe there was a motorcycle fatality on Richardson Street before I moved in, and there was a lot of angst about the speeds on Richardson Street through Wildwood South. And so someone got a bunch of signatures and they brought it to the city, and the city said, oh, this is a serious problem. We've had a fatality. We've got these neighbors asking for solutions, and they developed a plan for traffic calming on Richardson Street and Wildwood South. And then when they went public with the plan, the majority of the people involved went crazy who lived there. They did not want it. And that made the city very gun shy about this and led to these high public involvement requirements for the neighborhood planning process. So I believe that if we were to proceed down this road, that what would happen is that staff would be using their professional expertise in addressing actual problems that we can see in data. And they could preemptively address problems in similar areas that have the same physical and traffic characteristics. I'm not saying that we should bypass public input, but public input, you don't ask the public how to build a bridge. They don't know. They might know that there's a need for a bridge, So I think that we need to engage the public in figuring out what their concerns are and what their problems and where they feel uncomfortable. We don't necessarily want to ask them for how to build our way out of that, because we have academic research and engineering manuals that help us with that. And not the old federal highways manuals that cause us to build highways through cities, but for example, the NATCO guides for urban streets and so on that are built with the safety of all users in mind.
So if I may, one other question that I've kind of been thinking about here that I would like to kind of ask a little bit about here, and this may be a little bit too far into the policy or the implementation side of this here, but I believe I read something that to maintain the infrastructure we already have, we should be paving or resurfacing something like 4 miles of streets a year, and we're like half that currently. So are we would that then take away our capability? Are we, if we're, let's say we're supposed to be, ideally we'd be at 4, we're at 2, could that bring us down to 1.5, and we're repaving fewer streets and maintaining infrastructure, like roads are crumbling in other parts of town because we're prioritizing safety, and then does that kind of, which, I'm not gonna, I think it kind of is project dependent. I won't say one way or the other, that I blanket support one or the other. But does that then kind of take away some of the resources and the abilities to maintain the infrastructure we have, and B, then could that lead to further public backlash or a lack of support to continue down this road if we go down, get through 5 years, and then, we start to see some of these other ripple effects? Does that then cause a sea change at City Hall where, all the elected officials get voted out and all the work that we've done gets thrown out the window or put in that, secret room in the basement where all plans go to die? And then, it's that balance is kind of, I've been struggling with that as I've kind of been reading through the different, the different specifics in this. And then to just kind of wrap up my thought, also for the high injury network, are we, if there's a road that's been recently resurfaced or recently rebuilt in the last few years, but it's on that higher injury network, how do we balance prioritizing the safety of, let's say, a 5 or 10-year-old street versus, this one might be a slightly lower classification, but this street is 60 years old and hasn't been rebuilt. How do we balance the pull there of safety as the top priority or maintenance as the top priority?
Yeah. So on your first point, you know, how many miles of street we should be resurfacing per year and how many miles we are. The last 2 years, we have resurfaced, we resurfaced 4 miles of streets last year and a little bit more than that, 4.5, I believe, this year. That's with leftover money from the Fish Hatchery Road reconstruction project. We were able to do that, and we'll have a little bit more of that money. It's not technically that money, but it basically is. We'll have a little bit more of that money left over next year. So that has really allowed us to kind of catch up on our resurfacing schedule. The other thing that myself and my coworker Zach have been doing is trying to be much more aggressive with our surface maintenance priorities to make our existing roads, to make that asphalt last longer. It's just a lot cheaper to do crack seal on a road, and then you do your prescriptive maintenance. You crack seal in year 2, 5, 8, say, and then you do a chip seal in year 10. Keep doing your crack seal after that. Do another chip seal, and then look at that. Your road lasted for 45 years instead of 30, which is obviously a 50% gain, you know.
And I guess just to further drive home your point about the economics of this, keep me honest here, but I feel like this year it was costing the city $500,000 per mile to resurface our roads, but we were able to do crack filling and chip sealing on 36 miles of roads for $1 million.
Yes.
So
yeah, 1.2 million, I think.
Just to reinforce some of your other points, yes, when I was mayor, I was aware of this discrepancy. I made a big deal about it. I asked the council for a lot more money because there's a hockey stick of cost if the water gets into the base and you have to undercut the road and reconstruct it instead of just resurface it. It costs triple or more. And so I was saying, you know, this is a false economy. We've got to spend more tax dollars and keep up with this road maintenance. And the council didn't like it and didn't implement it, and I was voted out as mayor. So you have to build support for your ideas or they're not going to go anywhere. But I do believe that this is something we can do at the same time. I don't think that we should put in safety mitigations like moving curbs or building safety islands and things like that by taking money from our road maintenance. I think that with a lot of federal grants now becoming available through the bipartisan infrastructure law principally, you know, there's help to do this. And let's not make the false choice of whether it's got to be routine maintenance or safety mitigations.
And the grants are a very good point. And having the Safe Streets for All planning grant that we just applied for opens up Safe Streets for All implementation grants, which is a huge pot of money.
Yeah, they come in at $15 million instead of $3 million.
Yeah. And then on your other point about what if we just redid a road and then we decide we need to do safety mitigations on it. One way to think about it is you can do temporary safety measures like put up bollards or like rubber barricades instead of completely reconstructing a road, and then once it's time to fully reconstruct it, 10, 15 years down the line, then you build it the way you should have in the first place. So the spending the money smartly is a definite aspect of this.
Absolutely. And I guess one more thing that has kind of popped into my head here as well is, are we, even if we don't go in this direction, are future and currently under construction subdivisions already being guided through our normal processes to move in these general directions? Or do we need this to say, as Viridian or whomever looks to build the next big subdivision, do we need something in writing to say, to have some teeth in it and say, we want these types of, narrower intersections and more paths and things like that? Can we get that end result currently, or would this help us with that as we look toward future growth?
It would. I think the roads that are being designed for developments right now are better than they used to be. They're obviously not perfect, but this, I think, having a comprehensive list of our priorities for new developments would be extremely helpful, instead of having to make 100 small changes to our ordinance or development guidelines or whatever it may be.
These comprehensive development plans come in for Public Works comment, and Public Works has to make dozens and dozens of comments instead of, here, RTFM, here's the specs, this is how wide the streets must be, this is how narrow the crosswalks have to be at the intersections, and we don't have that today. But I must say, Viridian has been doing better, because I've been riding around Highfield Reserve, and the streets are narrow, and I really appreciate what's going on up there.
But it sounds like, I think we had kind of touched on this before, that could be some of that reclaimed staff time, that instead of going through with 100, with you run out of ink in the first red pen and you have to grab a second one, you can, spend more time on getting it, having something as a guide to work off of, so that you don't have to clean up on the back end, if I'm hearing correctly.
Another thing we can do, and I'd like to see Plan Commission do this, is not allow so many planned development districts. Planned development district is a unique zoning code for a particular project, and it has to be handcrafted by staff, or typically it's handcrafted by the engineers of the developer, and then the staff makes all these comments and they eke concessions out of them, and finally they get to a compromise. But the smart code doesn't require any of that, and if we could use elements of that and get more people to use the smart code, then we'd have the better streets that we fortunately have in Swan Creek, but not all of our planned development's that good. The Wingra Quarry is a planned development district. I want to check in with Elizabeth. Any comments or thoughts that you want to share? Questions for Ross or anything?
I don't think so. I do think we should, in the resolution, really uplift the fact that we already have this high injury network. It seems like that is a huge, the fact that the mapping is already done, it seems like the MPO has taken a huge chunk of the work already for us and allows us some direction. So I think we should really sell that at the council meeting and as part of the resolution.
Thank you.
And it also, I think, creates a little bit more responsibility for us if we have a map that says these are the streets that are very problematic. It feels like we do have a responsibility to do something about them.
I feel like the high entry network will soon be up on the big board. Is that what you're doing?
Well, I was checking to see if they actually had it on their website. Because last time I checked, they told me it would be up and it wasn't.
Yeah, they had PDFs of certain parts of it that they released, but
snapshot in time.
While he's looking at that, are there any other advice we want to give Ross? And I want to ask Ross if he thinks he has something, or whether we should devote another meeting. I don't think we should go any longer on it tonight, but we want to bring this back at our next meeting, or do you feel like you could consult with your colleagues and bring us something to look at, or what do you want to do?
I think I can draft something based off of what we've talked about and the guidance in the Vision Zero documentation.
Okay.
What would you be drafting, sorry, the resolution with, like, taking the text there and filling in the parts that need to be filled in? Is that the thinking?
Yes.
Okay.
And
he would
tweaking it for Fitchburg.
He would consult with the city attorney and the city administrator about who should be on these bodies and things like that, and who should appoint them.
I guess I'd be curious in that conversation with other elements of staff. When I look at the Vision Zero policy, and Section C, the purpose of this section is to create a new government body to oversee development, implementation, evaluation, Vision Zero action plan, and it's comprised of all of the relevant departments. Would they all say, I want to be on that, I want to have a part of my time dedicated to being on that new government body? And I'm not asking you to answer that now as much as like your input suggests that you'd like to see this in place. Just interested in the other parties that are also would be obligated to be a part of this once it was put in place, because there is obligation in here. It's not just you make a resolution, and there's a lot of things and they have specific timing associated.
The clock starts ticking the moment you pass the resolution.
Right, so, and I don't know if we as TTC needed to answer that question, or whether we say, oh, it seems like a good idea, and let city council figure out if everybody wants to be a part of that or not, but it's certainly obligating a lot of areas of the city.
I think that it's similar to the other issues that the city deals with that require the cooperation of all departments. Examples, for example, are sustainability, equity, and government transparency. These are like good ideas that management has to, policy makers have to adopt, and then they push down, and everybody is got to be on board with it.
Yes.
And I think that this is that kind of thing, and people will, on one hand, say, I can see this will be valuable for the city. On the other hand, it's going to be more work. Where do I get the resources?
Right.
And those questions will come up in every department.
Right.
And they have to be answered.
Right.
And to that point then, I'm looking through some of the examples of potential departments that would contribute to this. Health and school district right next to each other here stick out, since we have 3 school districts and we have one county-wide health department and PHMDC. Is there a concern, or could there be a situation where, let's say, Verona and Madison school districts will participate, but Oregon won't? And then does that affect the end product because of, are we disadvantaging part of the city over another part? Because, we can't, I don't know that we could compel, other Fitchburg specific bodies to participate.
Right, or alternatively, take school districts out as being mentioned in here because we don't have one.
Mm-hmm. Well, no Wisconsin municipality has a school district except Milwaukee. But I understand that we might get varying levels of participation from our school districts, but what I would want from the school districts is help us understand your safety concerns and help us when we collect data. And I think that what we will come up with with solutions we're going to apply uniformly across the city. And it could be, using your example, we miss a problem that's unique to the Oregon school district. But I don't think that risk is very high, that our school districts are different, but they're similar in many ways. And they all have hellacious pickup and drop off times. we're gonna need to deal with them, and I'm sure that they'll be very eager for any help that we can give them to make their kids safer.
And just to, clarify, that's entirely hypothetical. I'm
Yeah.
not, certainly not trying to suggest one way or the other anybody may or may not be interested.
It's not clear to me that the health department has a horse in this race. Some health departments consider traffic violence to be a public health problem, and they've got like a sub-department to work on it, and others don't, and I don't know if ours does, if they're dealing with it. If they are, they'll be eager to participate and grateful for the opportunity, and if not, we probably can't make them develop such a thing. All right then, so we will put this on the next agenda for discussion again. Maybe we will just put the reports before the agenda, or before this agenda discussion item next time as well. And I really appreciate everybody reading all this stuff and providing their input. And I would ask that, say by end of business Monday, if you have any comments that you want to give to Ross, based on your reading so far, you can do that so he has that available. And any other parting shots on this topic?
Just as a clarification for our one member who was not able to attend tonight, will those comments be included in the packet that we could reference and like as part of the minutes or the packet for next meeting?
It's down to here. This part is from me, so I'm gonna, let's see, you have a copy of this according to this, so you could include that, and I've made notes through this, and I'm just gonna give you my hard copy with the notes on it, so, and you can consult with me if anything seems inscrutable. But you could send email or provide any kind of level of notes that you want to Ross, just so that he has that, and we'll see what he has next month. And if it doesn't work out and you need more time, then you can let us know mid-month to email to the group, and we can come up with something else for the agenda.
I'm actually gonna let you know that right now because I just remembered I'm out for about 2 weeks in between now and our next meeting. So
okay.
I don't think I will have time to
all
get
right.
that for the next meeting.
In that case, let's put it on for 2 months.
Yeah.
And if you and I will discuss if there's anything pops up from the council.
Yep.
Is there any other agenda items that we should be concerning ourselves with for next time? Anybody know? We can all take a BRT ride before our next meeting and report back.
I guess I did have one thing that we could potentially discuss. The city's parking guidelines.
Yeah.
And I think they're very overdue for an overhaul if they remain to exist. I've seen, well, the Jamestown Quarry development. I said, why do you have so much parking there? There's 2 bus lines that run through that intersection, and the developer said, we don't put in any more parking than the city demands. And even though it's not a regulation, it's a guideline, it seems to be treated as more of a regulation.
They don't want their project stopped.
And, if you go to the city's website, you can see all of the plan commission applications, and if you read through some of those, they're like, yeah, okay, well, our current parking lot is 65 cars, we're doing this renovation, and per the city's rules, we need 113 spots or whatever, and so they're...
So you're referring to regulations about parking,
Parking
not on the
minimums.
streets, but parking, surface parking or ramps or whatever.
On-site parking.
To development.
I will say, I think we're getting into discussion about this item. We're very close to it.
Yes, so let's put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
And I will talk to you about that afterwards.
Can I have an announcement when we get to announcements?
Yes, I think we're there.
So just something to add to the report, from the report, the referendum is gonna be on the ballot in November.
Yes.
And
I didn't even say that, did I?
Yeah, it includes the transit.
Yep.
Right.
So it includes basically everything that we've been discussing, so wanted everyone to be aware of that. There's a ton of public meetings. The first one's coming up next week, I think.
For Logan's benefit, are you aware of what the transit option is gonna potentially get us?
Yes, and we've talked, I believe that was an item from the last meeting.
Yeah,
when I
okay.
was-
He was working.
I was online, and so
Yes.
Logan was not visible.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the corner quietly minding my own
He
business.
was not asleep.
Yeah, so the first, I think the first meeting is going to be
September 8th?
September September 18th. September 18th is gonna be on Zoom. So,
I think there's like 4 or 6 Zoom meetings and 3 or 4 in
I don't wanna say,
person, something like that.
I can't remember exactly.
There's a whole schedule, I think, that you can find on the city's website.
But I would encourage you all to attend at least one of the meetings, and I would encourage you to share that with your networks and make sure people get educated about it before we get stayed on the ballot.
You know,
These meetings.
Oh, great. Question from,
yes, I was just gonna add, do you know if FACTv will cover them so we can watch them afterwards if
Absolutely.
we can't attend?
yeah, I assume that they're gonna record all of them. Yes, I'm seeing a nod from the booth, from the Fact TV. They are recording them, and then, in terms of who runs them, it's a collaboration between city staff and Mueller Communications, which is a firm we hired to help us with that, the communication around it. Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Okay, so 2 announcements from me. One of them is that we will meet on October 10th at 6:30. And the other is that there is a week without driving coming up that I believe, I'm checking my calendar,
September
30th
to October 6th.
September 30th, Monday through the following Sunday. The objective is to build understanding and, if possible, empathy for the 40% of the people in Dane County who can't or don't drive. And so try to not use your personal vehicle. Try to carpool and bike and walk and take transit or Uber, and help because ideally, what we want is elected officials, city staff, and policymakers, and their advisors like us to have that empathy. And everybody in this group is pretty aware of that, but I just want to remind you that that's the goal. And I will be participating, and you can sign a pledge on the National Week Without Driving website. And that's all about that.
And if you get the Fitchburg Star, which you likely do, there's an article, an RCC article about the Week Without Driving this month.
Okay.
Authored
Look
by
forward to
yours
that.
truly.
All right. Thank you. Let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Hi.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Aye.
We'll see you next week.